Hello, my friends, and welcome back. Thank you very much for being with me again today. Well, this is the first time since the war in Ukraine started when the Ukrainians launched more than double in one day, more than double the Russians' number of drones and missiles. The Ukrainians launched over 500 drones and missiles over Russia during the 7th of May 2025. Why? Because Xi Jinping is in Moscow and because these guys try to derail the celebrations of winning against the evil Nazis. Therefore, you might be one of them if you want to destroy that kind of celebration. Anyway, that is the first topic. 500 Ukrainian drones, including HIMARS and Neptune guided missiles. That's the first one. The second one, the Russians launched their little CC-187 drones and 5 ballistic missiles or so. So you got about 200 Russians versus 500 some Ukrainians. All right, that's the second. The third one, the Americans and the Ukrainians, they don't understand, or they don't want to understand. They pretend that NATO will not be on the current territory of Ukraine or the one that already belongs to Russia. They don't understand that the Russians will keep fighting until NATO troops are out of as far as they can go in Europe, not only in Ukraine. Therefore, we have this guy from the United States of America, the envoy, and his name is Keith Kellogg. He says that Ukraine is prepared to establish a 30-kilometer demilitarized zone. 30 kilometers is 20 miles. So the Ukrainians are ready to have a demilitarized zone where temporarily the Russians will keep their gains, illegal gains, and in the other side we're going to bring NATO as peacekeeping troops. I think that the Russians are ecstatic about that. That's the main goal, the main reason why, I know, unprovoked and all that, why the Russians invaded or entered Ukraine. But these guys pretend they don't understand. It's like I tell you, you can't go outside tonight. It's raining and cold and you were a brat today. Go and clean your room. And he's still crying and don't understand, man. Next one. Romania was activated like this, not because George Simeon won the first round of re-elections, but because the Romanians are challenging the Russians directly. Have you heard the Romanians challenging the Russians lately or ever? Well. What happened? The Russians made a claim. I'm going to read you the claim. And then the Romanians say, you know what? You can't blame us for the war in Ukraine, the Romanians are saying. Well, I will make a point then to the last topic. I know why the United Kingdom, partly why the United Kingdom knows that they cannot fight a war, especially a war against Russia. This is the reason. I will show you the face of the reason. The main reason why UK knows they can't fight. They pretend like the opossum. They seem to be aggressive, but they're harmless. And I have the face. I will share it with you. Stay tuned. All right, let's start with the beginning. The 500 drones. Russia Today, 7th of May. They rhyme. Over 500 Ukrainian drones, shot down in one day, Russia says. The large-scale aerial attack also included HIMARS rockets and Neptune-guided missiles. Russian aircraft defense have repelled a large-scale Ukrainian attack, downing 2 Western-supplied HIMARS rockets and over 500 drones, the defense ministry in Moscow said on Wednesday. 5 long-range Neptune-guided missiles and 6 JDAM precision-guided aerial bombs were also destroyed. So this is how many were destroyed. How many were there launched? I don't know. Aerial assaults have increased in the lead-up to a ceasefire declared by Russia's President Vladimir Putin, which is scheduled to take effect from midnight on May 7th to 8th through midnight on May 10th to 11th. Instead of a humanitarian gesture to commemorate the 80th anniversary of the Soviet victory over Nazi Germany, the 3-day pause also opens the door to potential direct negotiations with Kiev without preconditions, Moscow said. So, what do you think? And here what we have here. Ukraine Vladimir Zelensky has declined to support the proposed ceasefire, calling it a Russian attempt at manipulation. According to the Russian Foreign Ministry war crimes investigator Rodion Miroshnik, the past week saw a record number of civilian casualties from drone attacks, with 15 people killed and 142 others injured. So, is it true? I don't know. That's what the Russians say. Now, I covered an attack on Moscow today, again, the third consecutive day of the Ukrainian drones. Try to disrupt the celebration of destroying the evil. On whose side you actually are, Zelensky? Well, that was a rhetorical question because I know the answer and I hope you do the same. I have to sit right at the edge of the chair because behind me is Mr. Meow Meow, my cat, right? And he sleeps over there and sides from time to time. So if you're gonna see him coming around, that's just you can see his black down there. All right, so 500. I wonder what's gonna be tomorrow, and I wonder what's gonna be on the 9th. All right, so that's the first one. Let's see how the Russians lost today. Ukrainska Pravda. Ukraine's Air Force destroyed 2 ballistic missiles and 81 UAVs launched by Russia, again Wednesday, May 7th. Russia launched 5 ballistic missiles and 187 drones on Ukraine on the night of 6th of May and the morning of May 7th. Ukrainian air defense systems destroyed 2 ballistic missiles and 81 Russian drones, while 64 decoy drones went off radar. All right, there you go. So they say they launched the first Iskander ballistic missiles and they downed 2. Correct? Correct. Next one. Ukrainska Pravda. Trump envoy claims Ukraine is prepared to establish a 30-kilometer demilitarized zone. Wednesday, May 7th. Kellogg, right here, who the Russians refused to have him as the Ukraine mediator, but they instead choose the Jewish, I would say, future Secretary of State, Mr. Steve Witkoff. Keith Kellogg, U.S. President Donald Trump's special envoy for Ukraine and Russia, has voiced the idea of a demilitarized zone to be controlled by both Ukraine and Russia. He asserts the third 30-day ceasefire could be a decisive issue. All right, well, let's look over a little map, shall we? Right there, this is a map of Europe, and we go baga, baga, zaga, maga. Okay, here it is. So they think they're going to have a 30-kilometer. What about the rest? Do you think the rest will be just left alone, or NATO will enter as peacekeeping troops? This is imbecilic. These guys, you see this territory right here, will not have any NATO troops legally or allowed by the Russians. Whatever the reason these guys, the euphemism this guy use, that's one. The other one, the Ukrainian army will be non-existent here. Got that? That's something that the Russians expressed from the very beginning. They should have said this, and they said it, but these guys ignored it, from the very first expansion of NATO, which was promised by James Baker, the Secretary of State of then United States of America in 1991, who told the Soviets, Russians, and if you agree for the unification, so they had a say, for the unification of Germany, West Germany with East Germany, I promise you there was going to be no NATO expansion 1 inch, that's 2.5 centimeters, 1 inch eastward, that means towards Russia. And they came I think thousands of kilometers, of at least 1,000. I will show you. Now, here is a map. This is, I'm going to show you, see my cursor, the demarcation line where NATO was. Let me go like this. Okay, so, no, baby doll. So we have here, so here is NATO. Norway was in NATO, Sweden wasn't, Finland wasn't. So go like this, then you got Denmark, then you have half of Germany right here. Then you go by Austria, all right. Actually, this is Czech Republic. So go by Czech Republic, then you go by Austria, and you go straight down here. This is Italy. And then you got the Switzerland. That's it. That's where it was, right? That line over there. And right now it is, look at my cursor, is right here. This, where is Finland. This is the Baltic states, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania. Then you got Poland. Then you got Romanian baboons. Then you got the Bulgarians, and you always had the Turks. But you didn't have this right here, was not part of NATO, right there. So that was a big lie that the Russians will never fall for as long as they still have balls and they are in control of their own countries, unlike the Ukrainians or Romanians or Bulgarians or Germans or blah, 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 blah. Okay, go on and on. Okay, let's move first. So these guys are just dreaming of a white Christmas. Let's see how Romania scolds Russia, tells Russia, don't blame us for the war in Ukraine. Why was the war in Ukraine? Why did it start? I know it was unprovoked, nothing. The Russians say it's because NATO's advanced towards their border and they felt threatened. You shorten my reaction time if you launch a missile from, let's say, Germany versus my border with Bryansk or Kursk or Belgorod. There is, don't play retards here, okay? That is, if you launch a missile, obviously from Deutschland über niemals lately, from here, until it gets to the deployment of our missiles right here, usually in the west of Russia, it takes, okay? Now, imagine that you do it from here versus you do it right here. You see that's at least 1,000 kilometers. So that means from here to Moscow with love, that could happen very fast. Right here, this is Moscow mule, right here. Zoop, zoop, okay? How do you like my words? Versus much further, okay? And imagine the Russians will bring their infrastructure right here. Do you think the other guys will like it? All right, let's go to the baboons in Romania. Ukrainska Pravda. Romania responds to Putin. So Romania, the country, responds to the president of Russia. Not Romania responds to Russia or the president of Romania to the president of Russia. No, it's Putin. Why? Because they imply Putin is just a dictator, okay? Who blamed Bucharest for war in Ukraine. Okay. Romanian Foreign Ministry, through a statement by spokesman Andrei Țurnia, has responded to Kremlin leader, his leader, not a president, Vladimir Putin's claim that Romania and Bulgaria contributed to the tensions that led to the war in Ukraine. Oy vey, let's see. Țurnia said that Romania's accession to NATO is the sovereign will of its citizens. I wasn't asked. I was there then when it happened. And its allies, and does not pose a security threat to anyone. So, if tomorrow the citizens of Cuba say we're okay with an alliance with Russia, and you can bring your air defense systems to protect us, the Cuban people, or South America from the bully boy America, the Americans should be okay, right? And well, it's exactly the same reason. Do you think so? And then the Cubans gonna say, we are no threat to anybody. But we have Russian nuclear warheads right there. Some Iskanders, some Kinzhals, like make it hypersonic, or maybe some Oreshnik, hypersonic ICBM. We don't pose any threat. What would you say? Okay. Cross my heart, hope to die. I trust you as we trusted you in 1991 with James Baker, shall we? You understand this is idiotic, and this Țurnia is a piece of garbage. I don't know, he was supposed to say that, or he said it because he thinks, if he thinks that way, he's an imbecile, okay? And if he was asked, that means he's a traitor. I think that he doesn't serve the interest of the Romanian people. But hey, what do I know? Let's move on. The spokesperson stressed that Putin is using the same familiar narratives that served as a pretext for a brutal war of annexation. Well, maybe Romania could have been attacked by Russia let's put it this way, I'm going to give you this thing. Yes, that's true. That's true. You need to get NATO out. All right? How about the Russians will tell you straight? Don't get NATO out, we're going to fucking nuke you. What are you going to say? America will say, shut the fuck up, go over there and clean your room. Let me talk to the guy here. Hey, how are you, Putin? That's how they're going to talk. Why? If Romania and Bulgaria, and the Baltic states would have been in the position that Ukraine is right now, when they were invited and they were part of NATO, if Russia was now, with its strength and might and with the connections with everybody else, like the Chinese and others, I guarantee you that Romania would have been bombed probably by the Russians. They would say, you can't have NATO over there. Strategic, my friends, we're afraid of you. We're not afraid of you. We're afraid that you are used by these guys who can fuck us up. That's what the point is. So don't play here idiotic. But the Russians were not strong when the baboons in Romania went to NATO. Remember, no 1 inch eastward expansion. So Romania, well, it's the will of the people. Well, it is the will of the people. Okay, some things are solved in this manner. We like it or not. I'm stronger than you, and you are in my sphere of influence right here. As America had the Monroe Doctrine. Remember the Monroe Doctrine? Remember? And they had the other doctrine. What was it? I can't remember it. So one was in East Asia with the Philippines. That's our backyard over the Pacific Ocean. Do you want me to bring this on right here? So, yeah. We were here, the Americans were here, and they said, all this right here, all right, all those guys right here are our backyard. You look over here, okay? And then they looked down here, and they said, you know what, the rest of the world? Europe, back off this. This is our backyard. You understand? Backyard. But the Russians are right there, where that color, shitty color is, right? And they can't say anything about the Ukrainians. Nothing. Can't say anything about them or about the baboons in Romania. But the Americans can go across oceans, the biggest ocean. Remember, Russia cannot say anything. I'm not saying that's how should I be fair. I'm not saying that's fair. But you can't claim from here, this is your backyard here. I mean, even if you take Alaska, you take Hawaii, you're still halfway, motherfucker. Right there. And you are here in South Korea. You were in Vietnam, your back door. You were in Japan, in Hokkaido, okay, in Honshu, Kyushu, Kugu, okay? All right, that's more like Chinese. And we have, again, your doctrine right here, back off Europe. Is the same kind of, not the same distance, but anyway. And you have Cuba. And these guys cannot say anything about this country next to Russia, this country here next to Russia, or this country which borders Russia? Are you fucking kidding me? I'm not pro-Russian, but I can't, let garbage just slide like that. I mean, if you say that, we're going to apply the same rule, the same statement you made on the other one and see if it sticks. And it doesn't. It doesn't. Anyway, let's go to the Romanians because they have more to say, it seems like. And then I have to show you the face of UK's might. The only country that threatens regional security in Europe is the Russian Federation, because Russian Federation moved westward towards NATO, not NATO towards it's so that's why he can't be so imbecilic. I mean, I know Romanians. So anyway, which is waging an illegal and unjustified war. No, it was unprovoked, not illegal. Okay, unprovoked, illegal, and unjustified. These are the words these guys right there. But was it justified and legal, the war in Yugoslavia in 1991, Romania? Was it? No, it wasn't. Okay, accompanied by numerous war crimes against civilians in Ukraine. Do you think that the Ukrainians did not commit any war crimes against the Russians? Do you think so in the field? Do you think so? Now, if you say no, I don't know, I let you slide if you're about 14. If your age is below 14 and below, and you say that, I let you slide. If you have some problems, yes, I let you slide. But if you're above that, stick around. Okay, as well as the Russian disinformation campaign and an anti-European and anti-NATO propaganda. My friends, I remember when Romania was a socialist country with a communist government party. And I remember the propaganda spewed on Romania that we believed in Europa Liberă și Vocea Americii, Free Europe and the Voice of America. Both at that time sponsored, financed by America's State Department and CIA to give us the truth. We didn't know that. I didn't know that. I was a child then. I was a teenager, let's put it this way. I believed in those guys, but I was below 14, under 14. And then with time I realized, no, that's propaganda. They lied to us. They told the truth here with their interest. And they were not over there to help us. They were to break us so they can come and right now have us. And they have us. So you talk about propaganda? You gotta be fucking kidding me. I read the Russian news every day. The Ukrainian news, American news, French news, British news, German news, every freaking day. Even Arab news, Israeli news. And you tell me, I can tell you who lies the most? The American. The Americans, they lie the most, man. They lie the most. I remember when a security colonel in Romania told me, you know who lies the most? I said, who? The Americans. At that time I was still baboon. I was like, nah, the Americans lie the most, man. Read their fucking media. No. So I got to read it with time. And then indeed, they lie the sneakiest way. But now they drop the ball because their society is educated. They gave them a paper and they said, you're educated, but they are not at the level of a below high school individuals. But hey, I have a diploma that tells me I'm educated. I identify as educated. You're not. Open your freaking mouth and I see how you think and how much you know. All right, let's move on. So right here. So this is what he says. In the propaganda documentary, from the get-go, Putin pa aired by Russia pa. It says here, including Angela Merkel, stating that the so-called light advances US bases are appearing in Bulgaria and Romania, one in each country, and we have every right to ask ourselves openly, against whom is this expansion taking place? So the Russians, the Putin said in front of these guys, so-called light advanced US bases are appearing in Bulgaria and Romania, one in each country. We have the right, every right to ask ourselves openly, against whom is this expansion taking place? So yes, you were occupied. The video goes on, Putin speaking. This was the message I wanted to convey to our partners and colleagues, hoping that they would hear us and change their attitude towards Russia. But unfortunately, they did not hear us. That is, they heard us but did not respond appropriately. Ultimately, this led to today's tragic events in Ukraine, he said. What do you think? I mean, if you know a lot, you can say yes. But anyway, I don't tell you what to think. You think whatever you want. I'm just giving you this piece of information. My problem is that Mr. Tsarnea, or whatever his fucking name was, is either a traitor, working for someone else saying this kind of garbage. He doesn't work for Romania, let's put it this way. Or he's a baboon, and if he's a baboon, he should not be in that position. Clear? Clear. If he's in that position, that means the methods of getting those people appointed, by whom exactly to say this kind of business, only gets me to the first point. You don't work for Romania. Next one, let me show you why Great Britain will never dare to attack Russia. You see that? Because of this guy, and the Russians know it, and the Brits know it. With these guys being the defense secretary in Great Britain, they know they will lose from the get-go. All right, why? For what he said. He said many idiotic things, including this one right here. UK Foreign Secretary speaks with Vance and he says, the world is losing patience with Putin. Who the fuck are you? What do you mean the world is losing patience? I would ask this what's his name? David Lemmy. He's lame. And David Lemmy, he's a French guy, right? So they like French. I don't know why they like the French names. They think they're more elevated or something. The world is losing patience with Putin. So what is the world gonna do? The world, like the whole world? Or just a few countries? Okay, Lemmy, how many... When you have a conversation with someone who pretends to be... ask him like questions like this. How many countries are recognized at the United Nations on the planet? Yeah, okay. Tell me where Bangladesh is on the map. Okay, tell me the population of, let's say, Austria. I'm not going to go to Honduras or something. I don't know it. But I'm just going to something that is easy, okay? And ask him questions. Okay, what is the capital of, I don't know, Mozambique? That is hard. Go to something else, easier. Let's say Slovakia. Is it, which one is it? Is it Bratislava? Is it Brno? Is it Praga? What is it? Now you're going to find out how much that person knows who's so elevated in lecturing you. Ask them concrete questions, populations, names, dates, and then you know if they know. If they don't know it or are about, you know the guy is just a, how do you call it? A guy who's a, how do you call these guys? They're looking for opportunistic guys. That's what they are. The same, Lemmy, the world is losing patience. Are you telling me, Lemmy, that the whole world is against Russia? Is that what you're telling me? And if they lose patience, what are they going to do? They're going to attack Russia? Okay, if they attack Russia, how will Russia respond? Can they beat Russia? No, they can't, because Russia has about 7,400 nuclear warheads. That means you can't. Even if Russia will lose a conventional war, Russia has a doctrine of self-destruction. Did you know that, Lemmy? He doesn't know. That's why they know this guy will never, Great Britain will never get in a war with this guy as a Secretary of State. That is, if Russia loses, it's going to automatically activate its self-destruction. Did you know that? Lemmy is know nothing. You know why he's over there, the defense secretary. You know, right? Because of his statements. Rest my case. Thank you very much for being with me again today. Stay strong, stay smart, look for the truth, and be just.